Hey guys, it's Andrew. Welcome back to my channel. So today is somewhat of a part 2 to my last video, and if you haven't watched my last video, please go and watch that. It is in the description below. I'll give you a couple of seconds to do that. Okay, so the reason I'm calling this somewhat of a part 2 is because some of it does relate to some of the things that I shared in the last video, and some of it is in relation to other things. So before I get into the topic and things I want to discuss in this video, I first just want to give a genuine thank you, and I think that just makes it sound so simple, but really the amount of support that I have gotten since I put the last video out is overwhelming, to say the least, in a good way. The amount of messages that I have received on my YouTube channel, on my social media platforms, through text, even from people that I don't hear from all that often. And many of you shared similar things that you have struggled with, and I don't want to say it was nice to know that they also suffer from that, because it's not like it's a wonderful thing to have to go through, but it's nice in knowing that others are feeling the same way. So I just want to thank you all so much for the kind, thoughtful, wonderful messages that I have received from all of you, some showing support and some saying that, you know, they suffer from similar things. So I just want to say that first of all, that, you know, I thank you all very much for the wonderful, thoughtful, kind messages that I have received from all of you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so now on to some of the things that I wanted to discuss. So just a disclaimer, this is more about what I am feeling and struggling with personally. So not everybody is going to be able to identify with these specific problems, but I hope that they are able to identify with the fact that somebody else is struggling with things. They may not be the same things, but struggling with things nonetheless that may be brought on by depression and or anxiety. So the reason that I'm calling this somewhat of a part 2 is because what I will be talking about with you today is greatly impacted by my depression and anxiety, but it is not the whole story. As I referenced in the last video, things are very, very intertwined. In my case anyway, things are very intertwined in that my depression and anxiety affects this, and in turn that affects my depression and anxiety. So I've made some decisions in my life recently, and I think this is even more difficult to share with you than it was sharing my depression and anxiety with you. It's almost embarrassing for me to admit. One of the decisions that I have made this semester is to not go to school, and that was a very difficult decision to make. It was brought on by a lot of things, and I don't even know where to begin with any of this, because like I said, it is so intertwined. It's very difficult to choose a starting point and go from there. I guess where I will begin is the reason that it makes me feel embarrassing to admit is because going to college is something that I always wanted to do. I think a lot of people had their hopes in that I was, you know, going to go to school and do well and do in life what I've always wanted to do, which is to get into broadcast journalism, and that's another point of discussion that I'm going to be having with you today, in the fact that it's all intermingled together. So the reason that I have decided to take a break this semester, there are several reasons. One is I was just not wanting to do it, and I know that sounds simple, but there are things that nobody, including myself, wants to do, but we do it because it needs to be done. Nobody wants to clean their bathroom, but I do it because it needs to be done. It's not my favorite thing to do, but it's something that needs to be done, and so therefore I do it. This is just an entirely different ballpark. You could just feel it in my stomach, in my gut. I just didn't want to do anything school related. I didn't want to do it. I loathed having to do it. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to want to do it ever again, just right now I didn't want to do it, and it didn't have anything to do with COVID, being online or being in person or nothing like that. That I'll get to in a moment. I've had that feeling for many years, and I kind of just put up with it. I've had a pretty steady decline in doing schoolwork and doing it well, and it's not that I'm incapable of doing schoolwork or that I can't do it. I just didn't want to do it, and so as embarrassing as it is to admit, it was, my grades were suffering for that for a while. And it got to the point where I just wasn't doing my schoolwork because I didn't want to. It doesn't make sense financially to continue and pay for going to school if you're not going to do it. I think I've done pretty well about trying different methods to stay in school. When in person, COVID happened, I was going online. I liked that feeling of going to class online because it made me feel more comfortable about not having to go to school in person. Tried that for a while in terms of like a synchronous class on Zoom. Then I tried asynchronous classes, meaning do your schoolwork whenever, turn it in when it's due. That was great. It was really good with my work schedule. But in each of those methods, I just still find that the common denominator was I just didn't want to do it. Another piece of evidence as to why this is also intermingled is, school aside, I am unsure what I want to do with my life career-wise anymore. And that may come as a shock, and it still comes as a shock to me because I've always known what I wanted to do for so long, which is to get into television news and to broadcast journalism. There are several reasons for that as well as to why I just don't know if I want to do it anymore. And some of them I'm not going to say because in the event that I do end up getting into that field, I don't want anything that I say to come back and haunt me. And so that leaves the question, well, what do I want to do? And that's a constant thought. These are all things that I think about in any free moment, any time that I am not preoccupied with something or busy with something. It's always sitting in the back of my mind. And when I'm not busy, this is what comes to the forefront of my mind. This is what I'm thinking about all the time. What am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with my career? Am I going to be successful? Am I going to like it? If I do this, am I going to stick with it? If I do this, am I going to enjoy it? What is it that I'm going to do? And I've compared it to standing in a blank room. There's nothing in there, nothing. It's just all solid color. Can't see anything. And I'm just standing there, and I don't know which way to walk because there's nothing. There's no sign of anything. I'm not asking for all the answers as to, Andrew, here's what you're going to do, and you're going to do it, and you're going to be successful, and you're going to like it, and it's going to lead to this, and then this, and I'm not even asking for that. I'm just asking for maybe a little arrow to pop up on the floor, and know that if I at least walk in that direction, I'll have some sense of an idea of what it is I'm going to do. And it is very difficult to explain this because I just don't know. And that is what's so frustrating, is I don't know. I don't like that feeling. Obviously, we have no guarantees in life. We don't know what life's going to bring. I understand that in the grand scheme of things. But this in particular is very frustrating, having no clue as to what I'm going to do, where it's going to take me, where it's going to lead, what's going to happen. It's very frustrating. It's also intermingled together because school affects career-wise, and career-wise affects school, and my depression affects how, if I want to go to school and if I want to do work, and it's just all this constant battle in a circular motion. They're just kind of bouncing off of each other. It's very difficult. And so that's why I say that this, is a part 2 to my last video, because my depression is causing these feelings about school, which is affecting career-wise, and career-wise is affecting school, and they're both affecting my depression, and it's just all of this big blob mixed together, and it's very difficult to sort it out because where to even begin? And there are definitely things that I would do. And I've said this in a video several months ago when I had voiced that I, was having this disconnect to what I wanted to do career-wise and with school. I really enjoy making videos. Obviously the videos that I make are a little different than what most video production careers would have to do with. So then I think, okay, well, let's say I went in the route of video production. What is it that I would enjoy doing? I don't know that I would enjoy doing something like film, maybe something to do with advertising or with marketing. I've always had an interest in graphic design and different aspects of marketing and social media, video production, branding, logo design, things like that. I've always had an interest. Not that I've ever done anything professionally, but sometimes just for fun, that's kind of the thing I'll do on my computer, and I think that shows in some of the videos that I make, when I'm designing the graphics and logos and things like that for the videos that I make. That's one thing I might enjoy. So I think if I did go the route of video production, well, how do I make a career of that? And part of that's my fault for, not reaching out to those in the field and learning more about it. Maybe I'm a little nervous too, I don't know. And then there are things that I would do that I know I would enjoy, but that are far-fetched. I know it's highly unlikely, but I would love to do this, my YouTube channel, full-time. If I had a little bit of success, I really think that I would enjoy doing it. I like being creative and being able to maybe entertain people and make them laugh, but I couldn't make a living off of it as it stands now, and it's unlikely that I will ever be able to, but I would enjoy it in a perfect world. That's what I would do right now anyway. So, there are things that I would do that I enjoy. It's just some of them are obviously far-fetched and highly unlikely. On the other hand, what would I do in what aspect and in what field, and would I have success? Would I like it? How do I make a career of it? Would I go back to doing something in broadcast journalism? Maybe, depends on what it is. It's a lot of unknowns, a lot of questions without answers. It's very tiring thinking about this stuff all the time, and there's no exaggeration there. As soon as I'm not busy doing something, this is what I'm thinking about all the time. These questions are just constantly bouncing around in my head. I can only hope that at some point there will be a sign which would equate to that little arrow in a blank room about which way to walk, or at least which way to begin walking, and have some sense of idea as to what it is that I'm going to do. Maybe that'll come up. Maybe it'll come up randomly. Maybe it'll be something that I've never even thought about. I've had other people and my therapist say, oh, well, you're young, you have time to figure it out. I don't really think in that way. It's very difficult for me to think in that way. I am a person that likes to have things planned out. When it's not, that's very frustrating. And so, again, I know that everybody is not able to directly identify with these specific problems that I am feeling. But I just kind of wanted to use this as an example of how different things can impact your depression, and how in turn things can be so intertwined with one another and affect one another. And, on the flip side, to just kind of share a little more about how I am feeling personally and what is really the driving force behind my depression currently. There's been things in the past that have been the driving force of my depression, maybe not so much anymore. This may not be a year from now or 2 years from now or next week, I don't know. It could be a very complex and fluid situation that's always changing, and different things can affect or trigger your depression at different times, and what affected you then may not affect you now, which may not affect you in the future. So that was really why I wanted to share this part 2 with you. I just want to say thanks again for the outpouring of support and kind and thoughtful messages, and I don't even know how to describe how thankful I am. I know saying, that means a lot and that it's much appreciated is kind of a standard answer, but I don't know how else to phrase it other than that, because it does mean a lot, and it is much appreciated how many of you reached out with your kind and thoughtful messages. And I just want to throw this out there, that if there's somebody that you don't talk to very often, if you just reach out and just even a simple text message, "Hi, how are you? Thinking of you," really, that can go a long way. And that's coming from somebody that doesn't have many friends and has never had many friends, and there's been many times where I really could have used that. Just a simple, kind message like that can do a lot. So just something to think about. So thank you for watching this part 2 to my first video. Like I mentioned in the last video, I want to stick by my goal of 1 video a week for the next 6 months, and I think so far we're on a pretty good track. I have some more videos that I'm currently working on that'll be coming your way in the coming weeks. So thank you guys again so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.